This is the 2024 Land Rover Defender 110, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as the exterior of the Defender, well, it's going on 5 years old at this point, and they haven't changed the styling, but I don't think they needed to. This thing still looks just as fresh today as it did back in 2020, and I still just love the styling of this thing personally. You have the round headlights in the front there, some retro cues, same thing in the back there with some taillights that harken back to the original Defenders. But you know, it's got this menacing look to it, but also kind of has a little bit of a friendlier smile with the way the front bumper is done up there. I don't know, I've admired these things on the road for the past 5 years. This is actually my first time ever getting to drive a Defender, so I'm very curious to, you know, try it out and talk about what I think of the Defender here after all these years. So this one we're looking at here is the 110, which is of course the middle one. There's also the two-door 90 version, and there's also the longer 130 with a more spacious third row and more cargo space. And so I also love the packaging of this thing. The fact that, you know, it still is a competent daily driver, but yet it has more ground clearance, 11.5 inches of ground clearance, and more water fording, 35 inches of water fording, compared to even like a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. So you have more capability than half of these Jeeps running around here, and you have it in this very classy and very cool package, in my opinion. But anyway, coming down to the sides, you have some 19-inch wheels on this one with all-terrain tires. You can get some more street-based tires or some more aggressive off-road tires. All depends on, you know, what you'd like. I really like that like sail panel you have there for the C-pillar area. And you can have like a lock box there on the side. You can have a ladder on the side of these things if you'd like. You know, you can really customize it and have it as rugged and wild looking as you want, or as subdued and you know, uneventful as you'd like as well. It totally comes down to what your preferences are, and I love that much versatility you have here with the styling. And out back there, I love how you have the large mounted spare right on the rear there, and the swing open you know, tailgate is great too. And yeah, I think from every angle, this thing, you know, it really speaks to the impressiveness of a design. If after a long time on the market, it still looks fresh and still looks good, they absolutely nailed it with the styling here on this. I'm actually glad they haven't changed the styling, and I kind of hope they never do, because it just still looks so, so cool. Right, for the interior of the Defender here. So this one, again, is just a lowly S trim, and this one has a relatively meager price of just about $83,500. These start just over $69,000. But again, this S trim is one of the lower trims in the hierarchy here for the Defenders. It's actually just one above the base, really. And so it's a good idea of what a base interior could really be like. Now, this one does have the $1,500 extended leather package, so that gives you some nicer padding in some areas, some extra leather here. But even without that added on, I'm just so impressed with, one, the storage space in this thing, and also the amount of authentic materials. You know, you have real bolts everywhere you look in this thing. There's a bunch on the doors, a bunch in the center. It's just so, so cool. This massive cubby you have here in the dash, which is also a structural piece with this, you know, actual cross member there. I mean, so many cool touches on this interior that even if you don't want to pay extra for the nicer stuff, it still is really nice. But anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, this one does have the optional 18-way seats that have the ventilation and the memory functions, in addition to heating, of course, and they're perforated, and they're really soft and comfortable, and you can adjust the bolstering on them to make them as tight or as loose as you want. And you know, I've really enjoyed sitting in these seats. They're just the right amount of softness, the right amount of support, and just perfect seats, in my opinion, for something like this. The steering wheel is also really fun. It's a little bit of a larger steering wheel, and I also really like this rugged part of it here. It actually just feels like it's like a rougher plastic, but it fits with the vibe of this interior, and you know, you still have the nice leather wrapping on all the parts where it's important, and has a great 9/3 grip. Just a few buttons here on it, nice and simple, attractive. The only complaint about the steering wheel is I wish it tilted down a little bit further. It's angled up a little higher than I usually like, but you know, I just raised my sitting position up. This is a vehicle you're supposed to be sitting up high in anyway, so not a big deal, but you may find that the steering wheel isn't the ideal position for you, but it's something you can get used to. And then anyway, going on to the gauge cluster here, you have digital gauges here in the S, and they are really nice gauges. You know, good amount of adjustability to them. They have, you know, the option to have, you know, multiple dials, or just a single dial, or a map view, or, you know, a bunch of different looks there. In the middle there, you can have it showing your torque split. whatever you want. And really nice and adjustable, and really cool graphics and all that, and just a really nice gauge cluster. Coming over to the middle here, this one actually is one of the few remaining Defenders that still runs the 10-inch touchscreen. Most of the higher trims will give you the 11.4-inch touchscreen, which is, you know, a little bit larger. Same menus though and everything as this, and I really like this system. It's, you know, mostly defaulting to CarPlay or Android Auto. It does have those wireless capabilities for wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. So like going into maps, it will just default to the maps on your phone. If you go to your phone, it'll default to the menu for, you know, CarPlay or Android Auto there for phone calls and stuff. Same thing goes for media and all that. Now you can, you know, select the built-in navigation if you'd like, or Sirius satellite radio, for example, instead of your, you know, CarPlay or whatever. But it's really well done. I also like the other little sub-menus there for off-road, you know, terrain response modes, also for the wade sensing it can do automatically. Just, you know, fun things. The very Land Rover-ness of this, you know, really comes through with the way they set this infotainment system up. And, you know, really nice from a graphics standpoint as well. And so, yeah, I mean, sure, having the larger real estate of the 11.4-inch screen would be nice, but if you want to, you know, save yourself some money, go from these lower trims of the Defender, no downgrades there. It's still a really great screen. I also forgot to mention the steering wheel is heated actually in the S as well too. So, you know, a really good amount of standard equipment, you know, heated seats, heated steering wheel, all that, even in, you know, base S, again, at under $70,000 is actually, I think, a pretty good deal these days with how expensive everything has gotten and the amount of off-road capability this does have. Anyway, though, coming down, you have, you know, nice variety of buttons here to control, you know, your climate stuff and also some of the terrain stuff there with these little selectors. And, you know, just a really nice little set of buttons here. You do have a volume knob that's pretty far away for the driver, but it's great for the passenger, and the driver can just use the steering wheel mounted roller here instead. So I think that's actually pretty well done the way they chose to do that. And then storage space. Storage space is everywhere in this thing. I have been racking my brain all week trying to think of a vehicle with more front cabin storage space, and I honestly don't think anything has more. Even some pickup trucks, I think, have less than this. So anyway, you know, the typical stuff in the doors is fine, you know, with a bottle holder pocket. And in the middle here, you have your two cup holders, and you also have this nice deep cubby that not only, you know, passes through in the lower portion here, but also you can dive down into it from the front here, and you'll see your USB-C and USB-A jacks and a regular power outlet. But a nice large space there, just so easy to access. I also love that this area has a little bit of padding to it still, and it's a flat enough surface that it's actually pretty comfortable to rest your knee on for longer drives. So that's great. You also have this center armrest that, you know, has a nice deep cubby in there. You have a wireless phone charger here ahead of it. But the real star of the show is, again, this giant shelf you have here on the dashboard. And even my wife, like, really commented on how nice and convenient it is, you know, having a bunch of stuff, being a mom and carrying a bunch of stuff for a toddler, you know, having that shelf to just dump stuff in, you know, if you're getting into the car or whatever, is great. It even has another USB-C jack up there, but it's rubberized and it's deep, so it's really does a good job of holding in your stuff too. I also love the grab handles you have there in a couple places on the passenger side and one on the driver's side. But again, that shelf continues through not only the passenger side, it goes behind the screen. You can stash stuff behind the screen here, and then it also comes over, you know, near the steering column on the driver's side, and also is on the left-hand side here as well. So many places to put stuff. Obviously, none of it's concealed storage. It's all out in the open, but it's really very usable and just really well done as well. And not just some pretty design piece, but it's actually all functional and really well thought out. And so up front here, just really makes a cool impression on you, I think, and just is a really fun, you know, experience up front here. And then moving on to the back seat here in the Defender 110. So it's a good amount of space. I'm 5'9", be sitting behind myself. I have several inches of legroom to spare, nice and spacious. Of course, this thing being so tall and boxy, you have a lot of headroom as well. You have this fantastic large moonroof to look out of as well, and it also opens. Usually a piece of glass this large does not open. And so it really is going to enhance the immersion of, you know, being in the outdoors, doing a safari or whatever you want to do or pretend to do. You know, it really opens up, you know, a lot of an open air experience here with that massive sliding roof. I also love the little windows you have there right above the C-pillar area, and, you know, a nice nod to the old Defenders. It actually does lighten up this cabin, I think, appreciably as well. But anyway, this one also has the family comfort package, which gives you tri-zone climate control here, and heated seats back there for them, and again, their own climate controls their own air vents, power outlets back there as well. But that package also gives you heated seats for the third row, which I'm not going to bother pulling the third row up in this because it is tiny. And, you know, the cargo space in this is about the same size as what you get in maybe some of the smaller compact crossovers out there. Obviously, this is a little taller, so a little bit of a boxier space, but you know, as far as the length and width goes, you know, like a Toyota RAV4 is about the same amount of space. And so imagine putting a third row in a RAV4 at its current size. I mean, it's not going to be, you know, you're going to have basically no cargo space whatsoever with third row up. If you're going to have a third row, just go for the 130 version. I think it's honestly silly that they offer heated seats, especially for a third row that almost no one is going to use. But it's there in a pinch if you really, you know, are in a bind and you need to, you know, carry some extra very small people or animals or something, you know, maybe works for that. But, you know, again, go for the 130 version. That 130 version is great that they offer that. And, you know, again, just gives you more cargo space or more third row space. There's also the Outlander version of these, which gives you that 130 length, but also will delete the third row, give you even more space just for a massive cargo area. If you really want to, you know, haul a bunch of stuff in one of these, you can do that as well. And so really great, the amount of options they give you for these. And so overall, yeah, a really nice interior. The last little thing I'll mention is this one has the standard Meridian 400 watt stereo. Sounds fantastic. Really good. I think there are stereo upgrades you can do, but I had no complaints here with this 400 watt Meridian. Meridian does some really good stereos here, and so a really great experience as far as that goes too. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Defender here still does have a Land Rover key, even though they're now like playing around with Defender being its own brand. Still has the Land Rover key, just has some basic buttons there in the back. It's a little bit of a heavier key, very substantial feeling, has some metal on the sides, but just a really nice key. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2024 Defender 110. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, well, I think the first thing that I notice is I love looking out at those ridges on the hood and the fun little ornamentation you have and the very upright windshield. It's not quite as upright as like a Bronco or a Wrangler or something, but it still gives you that adventure vibe just every time you drive in this vehicle. And also I think the dash and just the look of everything really enhances that. And so it feels fun every time you set off in this thing, in my opinion at least. And visibility is also fantastic here in the Defenders. You have a nice large windshield. The A-pillar is a little bit on the thicker side, but honestly, because of the way it's positioned, it hasn't gotten in my way all week. You have mirrors off right on the door there, but you know it got a little window there, so it doesn't block your visibility at the A-pillar, which is great as well. And then view out of the back is great because this one has the option for a camera rearview mirror. That is an extra cost option. It's just an a la carte thing you can add on if you want it. I think it's really nice to have, especially with this having that spare tire that can block your view there a little bit with the regular mirror. So I think that is one option worth getting for sure. Now, as far as, you know, the driving experience here, you know, because this is the modern Defender and not the archaic old one, you know, you have an independent rear suspension, and this one you have actually an air suspension for an extra $1,600. These do come standard with a coil spring, regular, you know, suspension setup, but this one has the adaptive air suspension here, which can lower itself up to 2 inches lower to get in and out easier, and it can raise itself up to 5.7 inches. If you want that max you know, amount of ground clearance, you're going to have to go for this air suspension in order to give you that clearance that you're looking for there. Other things though about this vehicle, so I really love the steering weight. It is nice and weighty, not overboard, you know, it's going to be fine still if you just want to use this as a regular family crossover, but you know, it feels substantial and, you know, fits the vibe of this vehicle in my opinion. I also really like the brakes. They have a nice amount of bite to them right towards the top of the pedal, but they're easy to be smooth with. Throttle response is pretty good. Occasionally I catch the transmission having a thinking moment where, you know, I'm waiting for it from a stop. Sometimes it won't, you know, give me acceleration immediately. Sometimes, you know, whenever I'm, you know, leaning onto the gas, sometimes there is a second or so where I have to wait a beat and then it starts going. It hasn't really gotten on my nerves too much. There's been a few times from a stop where I'm like, all right, like I just wish it didn't do that. But It hasn't soiled the experience at all for me this week. It's still been totally fine. You know, you can obviously turn off the auto stop-start system if you would like. And I think that is part of, you know, just that system not being super quick to kick back on sometimes at red lights and stop signs, I think is what does have the potential to slow down this whole vehicle here a little bit. But I'm going to turn that onto this back road here and see how it accelerates. Here we go. See, there's, all right, now it's going. See, it just like takes a second. It's like, oh wait, you want full throttle acceleration? Here you go. So that's the kind of delay I was talking about right there precisely. But then once it goes very nicely. This thing is punchy. So this runs a 6-cylinder, 3-liter turbocharged engine, and it also has an electric supercharger on it as well. And so all that combines to make 395 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is just under 6 seconds. I think it's like 5.8 seconds. And it's nice and punchy, especially, you know, because of the turbocharger and just the motor feeling so strong. It's really been a nice thing to have this week. Now, that is an extra upgrade for this P400 motor. It's about a $7,000 upgrade, in fact. That's part of why, you know, Defender S starts lower, but then this one, you know, has ballooned up in price by, you know, almost $15,000. A lot of that is just the engine. If you don't go for this engine upgrade, you will go down to a 4-cylinder turbo engine, a lot less power. I think about an 8.5 seconds 0 to 60 in that one. I mean, 8.5 seconds is still like what a Subaru Crosstrek or Outback or something will do. So not, you know, insanely slow or anything, but for a vehicle like this, as large as it is, you know, and again, you're paying, you know, a higher price tag. I mean, if you want to save money, again, it is a substantial savings, but I think that, you know, you want to probably go for the 6-cylinder. It sounds pretty nice too, I'd say. And it is a really nice motor. So it's hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission and a 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive system that does have a twin-speed transfer case, they say, with a low mode. But coming up some corners here, let's see how the Defender handles. Obviously not this thing's purpose, especially on these all-terrain tires, on these, you know, smaller 19-inch wheels here. Certainly is not the focus of this thing for handling, so I'm not going to review this like a sports car. Steering is a little bit on the slower side, as you want in an off-roader like this, and, you know, it you know, again, is tuned properly for the purpose of this vehicle. And honestly, though, it doesn't handle bad. There is a little bit of lean here, and, you know, you have low limits. It doesn't feel like it enjoys going around corners necessarily. You know, but again, I wouldn't really expect something like this to anyway. Now, there are sportier versions of the Defender. Again, the 2-door version will certainly feel a little sportier, I think, and you can get less, you know, rugged tires and get some more street-based kind of tires on these if you'd like. There's also the fancier suspension now for the Defender Octa, with its insane over 600 horsepower BMW twin-turbo V8 and the wildness of all the extra off-road capability that one provides. So there's, you know, again, really a Defender for every taste and every flavor of the rainbow you can get here with the Defenders, really. But, you know, as far as just like, you know, driving around with the family this past week and just doing errands and usual stuff, it's been totally fine. I haven't been annoyed by the handling capabilities. This is a vehicle you just take it a little bit slower, obviously, and again, it's just the adventure of the drive and, you know, the character of this vehicle, which it really does have, you know, just enjoying that more so than, you know, trying to push it. But as far as the other capabilities here of this thing, once you're off the beaten path and wanting to tackle that kind of terrain, you can have this terrain response mode with a variety of different drive modes to, you know, get through whatever you want to get through. And like I said, 11.5 inches of ground clearance at the max height for this air suspension here, 35 inches of water fording, you know, lots and lots of capability, and again, all the tech to help you with that as well. You have the 360 cameras that can help you out with all that, including that forward-facing camera, which is very handy in off-roading situations. I've personally appreciated that in other vehicles that have had that when I've been on trails doing some off-roading, and so, you know, it's very well equipped for all that stuff. Again, you do have that low range here in order to, you know, do some climbing. You have hill descent control to help you out, you know, all the assistance you need here to make this, again, a very competent, capable off-roader. It's the real deal with these Defenders. They took it very seriously, did a lot of brutal testing on these things to make sure that, you know, it lives up to that Defender name, and I'm not experiencing that myself here this week, but, you know, I take their word for it, and, you know, I've seen the things that these things can do, and so all very impressive as far as that goes. The last little capability thing to mention is the towing. These can tow 8,200 pounds, which is a solid amount of towing as well. So just in all the areas, it's really like a Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways of just doing everything. But I think, you know, the thing that I love is, yes, it has all the capability and more capability than a Wrangler Rubicon, for example. Yet it gives you good on-road comfort. You know, this thing It steers well. It you know, handles much better than a Bronco. Certainly better than a Wrangler. Bronco's better than Wrangler in my opinion, but I mean, you know, it's just like the difference in this between those, it's a whole nother world, and these are so much more luxurious. So you have that capability and all the same ruggedness, but with more luxury, more on-road competence, and it kind of does it all. And I think that's what really has me smitten with the Defender. And so now just cruising on a main road here, you know, the ride is nice and quiet even with these tires. You hear the tires a tiny bit, but not really much. And again, you can option on tires that aren't, you know, these all-terrain ones if you want, but even with them on, it's fine. It's not a rough ride, it's not a loud ride, it just really is nicely done. And so yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, I'm just so impressed with the breadth of capabilities of this thing. And now out on the highway here in the Defender, I have the adaptive cruise control system on with the lane keep assist, which is standard, by the way. All safety tech is standard in these, thankfully now. So blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, everything is standard here. But it's really nice to have the adaptive cruise finally, because these European brands used to nickel and dime people for that forever. But anyway, so it's doing a good job of adjusting for speed here. We're coming up some corners. We'll see how it handles these in direct sunlight, no less. So see how it does. So yeah, so what I found earlier this week, unfortunately it's doing it again here, it will let me go right over the lines. So it is not a very good system, and it didn't even give me a warning there. There's some other times where it'll turn red for the one lane where I'm going over and be like, hey, you should, you know, stay. Okay, and now it's doing it. So it does a better job for the shoulder, strangely enough, than on the left-hand side here, where I think it's more crucial to knock over the lines whenever you're dealing with other cars versus dealing with the shoulder. So, you know, it's, I guess, a nice thing to have for the times that it does work, but it's not a reliable lane keep assist system, unfortunately. So it's not going to allow you to, you know, kind of relax really on the highway as much. Obviously, all these systems are still hands-on systems for the most part, at least all the, you know, vehicles that this competes with. None of them have a true hands-free thing, but just would be nice for it to be able to do some more assertive assistance for you. And unfortunately, again, it's just, it'll let you go right over the lines, no problem. So other than that though, out on the highway here, you know, doing typical highway speeds, you do hear the tires a little bit, and you hear some wind noise. Is it terrible? No. I would have no problem doing a road trip in this thing, no complaints whatsoever, because again, you have these nice, soft, comfortable seats, all the tech and great stereo and stuff. This has been a really nice thing. We actually did a decent amount of highway driving in it this week, and yeah, I've had no complaints. I've really enjoyed driving this thing, and honestly, like, again, I had never driven a Defender before, so I didn't really know what to expect or what I was going to get out of it. And then, you know, I've come away really impressed and pleasantly surprised. It's actually done better than my expectations from an all-around standpoint. My other one final little complaint is that I would recommend not getting the Climate Pack, because the Climate Pack these days just basically gives you like headlight washers and this heated windshield. If you plan to park this outside, a heated windshield is really nice if you do clear a lot of snow off of your windshield all the time and you have a nice long winter. But even still, the reason why I don't like it is you can see the heating elements in the windshield, and so every time you're driving, at least me, I'm always like, I really wish I didn't have these like jail bars almost I'm looking through on the windshield. I mean, again, it's very minor, but it's there. And if you're someone like me where, you know, once you see it, you know, you can't get it out of your head, you know, it's a little bit annoying. Thankfully, again, that's just an option. You don't have to have a heated windscreen. I wish they would come up with a better way to do it that didn't involve having, you know, these little elements going through the entire windshield. Even just like a heated wiper park would be, I think, enough. But anyway, that's something that, you know, a lot of JLR products have had for a long time. So nothing new there, but just want to make you aware if you're new to the brand, you know, check one of these out, take it for a test drive, and see if the heated windshield bothers you. Fuel economy for the Defender here with this 6-cylinder engine is going to be 17 mpg in the city, 20 on the highway, and 18 combined. And in my driving here, I did about 146 miles here so far, and I'd say about half of that was on the highway. And so with that amount of highway driving, again, pretty close to a 50-50 split here. I'm averaging actually 18.1 mpg, and that includes the filming of this interior where it was idling for a little while, which brought that down a little bit more. I was seeing like mid-18s, like 18 and a half earlier. And so, you know, I'm hitting that combined figure. So I'm pretty happy with that. I, oftentimes do 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating, or I struggle to get the combined rating, even when I do a close to a 50-50 split, of city and highway. So, I mean, again, 18 mpg is nothing to get excited about or praise, but it hits those ratings, and so that's great to see, because again, that's something some other companies can't manage to do. And so yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see a more fuel efficient option or an electric version someday. Maybe that will come, but for now, this is kind of, they call it a mild hybrid, but aside from the extended stop start, it's never really shut down the engine at all, during my driving here this week, and it's just been a normal driving experience. There's no real hybridization that you can at least feel or see. So the last thing to mention here is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as pricing goes, like I said, for the S version here, they start at $69,375. This one, as tested, is $83,525. And again, because of just how expensive everything's gotten, especially new generation versions of many of these types of vehicles, it's a lot of this stuff's getting expensive. And honestly, a vehicle as capable and as large as the Defender for $83,500 with all the stuff this has is really good. I mean, you can easily spend 83 grand these days on, a Bronco Raptor or on, some type of Wrangler. And so, I don't know, I mean, to have all the luxury and the capability, the extra refinement, the Land Rover Prestige, which I think, is a little bit of a higher opinion than, a Ford or a Jeep, I think are all reasons why. Again, just also the uniqueness of this. There's so many Wranglers and even Broncos these days. They're all a dime a dozen. You stand out in a Defender. And for some people, I think that's important, and, something that's worth paying a little bit of extra for, but it's not really much of an upcharge these days. And the last thing to mention though here is how it compares to the competition, and there's really not great competitors to this. I mean, I guess there's some cross-shopping with the Bronco and the Wrangler, but again, it's such a different world, such a different vehicle that, to me, I'd much rather have this, but it all just comes down to how rugged and how much you want to rough it with the Jeep and the Ford. But I think the best competitor to this, honestly, in a way, is the Ineos Grenadier, which that is a new one on the scene here. Definitely a part spin special. There's some interesting BMW components in that, and it's definitely more rough around the edges. Again, being a smaller, much smaller company, not as much polish. It's really rough and aggressive. But if you do want a British off-road, you want something that's got that same kind of vibe, the Ineos could be an option. Otherwise, though, really the only good competitor to this that has the off-road capability this has is going to be the Lexus GX. And the GX does come in at a similar starting price, but with options, they come pretty well equipped already. Again, you have heated seats, heated steering wheel, I believe cooled seats even is standard in those. And for the Overtrail version, you can get one of those for about $71,000, which are very capable off-road. Now, there's the more expensive Overtrail Plus, which gives you all the goodies and all the luxuries and all the tech, but also gives you the off-road capability. Those can climb up to a comparable price to this. And I will say the Lexus gives you bigger screens. It's a brand new vehicle, so it's a little fresher, and it's very capable. I did some wild off-roading on a little course with Lexus in the GX. It's very impressive off-road. And again, you have the Lexus durability, reliability, and it's about the same as far as power goes, about the same as far as, fuel economy and all that kind of stuff. No real gains to be had there, but again, you have, just those highlights that I mentioned there, where it is a little bit nicer than this. So if you are someone who wants to save a few bucks and you do still want to have this kind of capability, I mean, you do have less ground clearance than the GX, even on the Overtrail versions, because they don't have, an air suspension that can raise up as much as this does. So this is still the king of off-roading in that, very small little competitor set that we're in here. But if you're not needing the maximum amount of ground clearance, GX, especially GX Overtrail, is a great alternative, and especially if you are just looking for a nice daily driver, a nice family cruiser vehicle that also still has that rugged, trucky kind of vibe to it. GX is fantastic. I really enjoyed my time testing those as well, and highly recommend those too. So that's really, I think, the strongest competitor and the biggest problem for the Defender in a way. But again, that doesn't have the kind of personality you have with the Defender here, the fun touches you have in the Defender, the fun styling, the more of a utilitarian interior versus the Lexus being a little bit more of a typical Lexus interior. Neither choice is bad in my opinion. I think they're both really fun, but I don't know, I found myself having some kind of just special kind of appeal with the Defender here that I can't really put into words. It's not a very tangible thing, but it just, was fun and kind of gave me that fun vibe of the Bronco and the Wrangler without the sacrifices that the Bronco and the Wrangler demand. And for that, I really love this thing. And so yeah, really impressed with the Defender, really happy to finally try one out all these years later. And so yeah, let me know your thoughts on the Defender in the comments below. Huge thanks to Land Rover for providing me here with this Defender to review for you guys today. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.